Hello and welcome to All the Horrible Things, episode 61. We're coming to you off the heels of the top 10 scariest Spider-Man villains, in lieu of the Spider-Verse having been released, across the Spider-Verse, that is. We're going to hit you with something similar today. This is all Chris's idea, by the way. What's this one, Chris?
I don't remember that, but that's fine. I'll own it. This is the top 10 scariest Disney characters / villains, because I think there are some just straight up scary characters, but we're going for villains. And never in my life growing up would I ever have thought that we could have lumped some of the Spider-Man characters, because some of them are still Disney property with...
No, they are. You're right.
Yeah, right. And some of them are Sony. But yeah, what a world and what a time to be alive when Disney owns everything.
That's right.
So
this could have been a part two.
This could have been.
My number one...
Yeah, my number one villain of all time is Disney. Now,
right. No, Ron DeSantis. Now, he's the biggest Disney
and
villain
Disney
out there.
Too.
But we do want to note that we are specifically sticking to 2D animation, right? I'm pretty sure everything on our list is 2D right now. Maybe we'll hit you with Pixar or the newer 3Ds. I don't know. I might be wrong about that. For example, is like Frozen? The Frozen villain's not on my list, but is Frozen considered 2D? Or is that 3D?
No. Frozen is 3D characters as well.
There's only one on my list that's questionable then, but I think we're fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. It's crazy that a lot of these on my list are just based off of memory. And there's a lot of these films. I don't tend to revisit a lot of these classic Disney 90s 2D animated movies, but I think that's okay because I'm going off of what stuck in my head as a kid. I'll just jump into it. My number 10, which creeped me out as a kid, but I'm also somebody who has always loved horror stuff, so I also loved it at the same time. My number 10 is the Headless Horseman from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Love it.
Yeah.
Technically not a feature length, is it?
Great question. I
feel like it's an hour length there, but I freaking love The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in every incarnation that's out there, including the Disney one. Why did it hit you?
Again, just stuck in my mind. I'm well familiar with this story of Ichabod Crane, but I remember just visually the shots of the Headless Horseman on the horse, it jumping up, on its back hind legs, the moon and the creepy trees. I loved that. It sent chills up the spine as a child.
The mood of Sleepy Hollow is freaking palpable.
Yeah,
I'm with you in that it's scary. I kind of just forgot about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think it was certainly scary also with the Christopher Walken version.
Oh,
He's Tim Burton's version, rather.
Agreed.
With Walken playing him. But I'm with you, and this is one of the short stories that I try to teach any chance I get, because Washington Irving was one of the pioneers in creating a lore, and specifically a horror lore for America, that before it even had one, because you got to think about how Europe has all this history to draw from to create all these fairy tale baddies, but America at this time when he wrote it in the 1800s was it had a vacuum. There was nothing really to draw upon, so he then took the first the Revolutionary War to use that and the horrors involved there to then create this Headless Horseman's lore. So he's creating kind of like the patchwork of the narrative of our country here in the States. So I think it's a really important villain that, granted, Disney takes such liberties with properties too sometimes. Did they buy the rights to that? I'm always curious about how stuff like that happens.
I think a lot of this material might be,
public domain.
Public domain, because Disney is also taken a lot of Europeans' folklore and turned it into their feature-length films. And I'm sure that will pop up later in our lists. But you're right, and we have talked about that before. You've brought it up. You forget how important it is that, America didn't really have... We're still a baby as far as countries go. America didn't have all that lore, and it was borrowed from, Europeans coming to America and what was going on at the time. And it's such a great story. I wasn't even thinking, is it a feature length film? You know, that's
doesn't matter. It's super memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, just super memorable. That's my 10. What's your 10?
My 10 is probably people don't remember it as well as they should. It's an underrated villain. It's Percival C. McLeach, who people might remember from The Rescuers Down Under, the 1990 film, where George C. Scott, of all people, voices this villain, and he's the perfect voice for this poacher. And his character's like really gray in tones, and he's just cruel. And I'm going to talk about another villain here that like kills animals, but he definitely takes pleasure in killing animals. What differentiates him from someone I'll talk about later is he does do it for money, right? This is why I'm putting him down at 10. First of all, he's abusive to his pet salamander, Joanna, to the nth degree. He's just one of the scariest hunter archetypes I can think of in animation specifically. And the way that he's just like mocks the child in it, just relentlessly mocks them and beats his salamander. And he just enjoys killing the animals, to me is really scary and sadistic. And as a kid, I remember him being a really formidable baddie, even though the rescue movies are kind of like, you know, they're kind of considered second tier, I would say.
Yeah, that's not fair either. I just think that they're not as popular, unfortunately. Really fun movie. That's a great pick. That's a great pick.
That's my number 10.
Who's your number 9?
Interestingly, so that was 1990, and then 1991, you're going to have a movie that is like their top 3 of all time in most people's opinion. And this person didn't actually initially make my list, but I did toss up there on the subreddit of Disney, what are people's scariest villains? And I had thought about this character, but not until I got the explanation by one of fellow subredditors that I realized he does belong on the list, and that's Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. And I gotta say, as a man, I think that I'm probably not as frightened by him as I think women should be, because he's one of the most overtly misogynistic characters. The moment in the film where he demands Belle marry him, I mean, if I was a chick, I would be very, very scared by that.
He's
the way he's able to just gather a mob together. He leaves Belle's dad to get eaten by wolves. I mean, he straight up wants to kill the beast. That's the only one like, it's not good, but you can kind of understand it to a degree because you really don't know the motives of this big man beast thing. The rest of them, I think, make him a little scarier than that because it could be kind of justified that you want to take out a monster essentially. But really, it's just his bipolar nature too. One moment he's singing, and the next moment he's just freaking evil. You know, he's unpredictable, I guess. And just, you know, vain characters are something that pops up, and I'm gonna have another vain character that I'm gonna talk about later that made my list. But for a man to be vain is not usual in Disney films, you know? So that in itself, it's such a different sort of male character for Disney that I was swayed, and I see why he belonged on the top 10, Gaston.
Yeah, that guy's a real piece of shit.
Yes.
But like you said, the idea of getting rallying a crowd behind you because you're putting fear into them, that is like the oldest form of just, you know, fear and cause of terrible things to happen.
He makes the other, you know what I mean? He's using techniques that are still used today. As this person in the sub put it, he's one of the Disney villains you can actually believe was a person, you know?
Yeah.
Like that existed. Minus the singing out loud stuff, you know, in front of everyone.
Yeah, of course. Of course. That guy's really weird. Why is he breaking into song all the time?
It does make him a little less scary, I'm not going to lie, but he makes the list.
My number 9 is from a character that may have been, you know, not necessarily forgotten, but maybe a little rare for this list because, I don't know, I think he's just more of a scary character instead of like a villain, but Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas is he's, you know, the burlap sack filled with bugs. I think he just embodies like eeriness and like whatever's going on inside of Tim Burton's head. I remember watching it as a kid being like, it's unsettling, you know, just Burlap sacks in themselves are creepy, but filled with bugs. So that one also just popped into my
I completely
head.
forgot about Nightmare, but yeah, I'm with you. In almost as scary, maybe a little scarier for me from Nightmare is the three kids that work for Oogie Boogie.
Oh yeah,
Kidnap Santa Claus, beat him with a stick, lock him up for 90 years, and see if he kicks. I mean, this is horrible stuff from kids.
Yeah,
you know, when you got villainous kids, that's another rare thing in Disney.
Honestly, there's nothing more terrifying than like a gang of children.
Yes, they kidnapped the big fat man. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I love that film. It's a classic. But yeah, it's scarier than I realized. You tell me your next one then.
My number 8 is Jafar.
Oh,
Jafar
okay.
from Aladdin. This guy is straight up, just evil. Like his demeanor, like he like kind of like not necessarily hunched over, but like tall and kind of toppling over, and the deep voice, the transformation into what he is, into this powerful sorcerer. I mean, he was like, as a kid, if you had to think of like a cartoon villain, he would pop into my head first, I think, but maybe not necessarily the scariest on this list, but just straight up, evil villain.
He's 100% evil, and he almost made my list. He did, but then I got into a discussion with Mara about his motivations, and I realized he's really hands off in most of the evil things that he does, right? Even when he like leaves he's not doing the killing himself. He's not, he's hiring other people to do it. His motivation is seemingly mostly power. I was going to put him on the list when I thought that he was kind of creepy about Jasmine, but I've been schooled on this, and apparently Jafar is considered an LGBTQ villain. And I didn't realize that until recently. But I mean, to me, one of the scariest things is when he like puts Jasmine in the sand hour clock in the skimpy outfit. I thought he was kind of getting his perv on. But I don't think it's about that. I think he's more about the power, right? And I think there is this subtext. Then it's because he can't be his real self, that he wants to overlord over others that might be there. And I hadn't considered that until recently, and that makes him less scary because he's dealing with some inner demons that are legit. Certainly back in 1400 Saudi Arabia. What is it? Let's
just say the Middle East.
The Middle East. There you go. Agrabah. That's
Agrabah. Yeah.
Okay. I knew I'd come up with it.
That's okay.
But he's okay. Look-wise, I'm with you. Iago brings him down a bit, though. I think Iago softens him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I get it. So my number 8 is Mother Gothel from Rapunzel, which is one of these ones that like I didn't want to watch for a very long time. Right. And then I finally gave it a shot. And this is the one I was like, is this a Frozen-esque 2D or is it more of this new 3D? I'm not sure what Rapunzel is, really. I'm going to assume that it's a 2D, and I'm putting Mother Gothel there because, like Gaston, she's run by vanity again, in that she claims to be Rapunzel's mother, and the fact that she kidnapped, similar to what we were talking about with the Green Goblin having stolen MJ and Peter Parker's kid. Mother Gothel steals this kid at a young age and essentially imprisons her for 18 years. That's horrifying. And then to pretend to be that person's mother atop that, to kidnap, and then to fake being the parent, and the fact that she just wants to stay young and beautiful, such like vapid motivations, is scary to me on its own, especially considering our culture and how that's, again, back to Kardashian sort of stuff that just drives me bonkers and scares me for the future of humanity sort of stuff.
Definitely.
And she's an interesting villain in that she's like the first person we see on screen. It's like she wants it to be called Mother Gothel in a way. Right. Other villains, like, you never really consider what the movie would be called. But if it was up to her, it wouldn't be Rapunzel, it'd be Mother Gothel. She wants that notoriety and attention, which I find frightening.
Rightfully so.
Interesting. I'm going to move on to my 7 because they kind of connect a little bit. My 7 is the Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland.
Wow.
Because
nice one.
This is back in 1951. This is getting released as a cartoon. And it's like the first really like horrible matriarchal character that you're getting, that was also the voice of like the fairy godmother and one of the fairies in Sleeping Beauty. This voice of this woman who was normally associated with loving, caring mother figures, to then go and be this queen of stereotypical hearts. You'd think she would be loving of her domain, but all she just wants to cut everybody's heads off, man. She's a decapitator. Is horrific, and the way that she's able to like just emasculate all the men around her as well, including the king. That's scary to me. And I take back that she's not the first matriarch to be evil, of course. I'm saying she's like the first one to be so emasculating of the men around her, and murderous too, because certainly you're going to have Cinderella's mom and the like, and even Maleficent, but there's something about the Queen of Hearts that's just like that voice. You anticipate the fairy godmother, but instead you're getting this woman that wants to murder a little child to take off her head. So
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. My number 7 is I think a little more scary these days because it's voiced by James Woods, who is like a terrible person. But my number 7 is Hades from the Hercules movie, and
James Woods makes him scarier, 100%.
Yes,
knowing what we know about James Woods now.
Knowing what we know, but visually he was creepy to look at too, with like the blue flame on his head and the dark lips, and just I think you're right. I think just even like the voice. I mean, James Woods as a person is terrible, but James Woods, even as a voice actor, made him fucking.
We got to make sure we at James Woods on this release.
Oh, that guy's a real piece of work. Real piece of work. But yeah, I mean, the ruler of the underworld.
He's the devil, for frick's sake. You know what I mean? He better make the list. Granted, I didn't put him on mine, but I have a devil-like similar character.
All right.
But I get it. I do. And this is another one like Jafar that I saw on the list of potential LGBTQ. This is Pride Month, after all, so it's important to have representation. And I think Hades is inherently scary. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, the dark humor, the explosive anger. This guy's a real knob job.
Yes. And that's not related to the LGBTQ stuff.
Not at all.
Okay, good.
Not at all. Not at all.
All right, what do you got next?
I have the queen slash witch from Snow White. And this is something I told you a long time ago, that like witches terrify me.
Right.
I don't know. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're females, but the idea. I think you tried to say, why? What's your deal with witches? I'm like, no. It has nothing to do with that.
That sounds like me.
Yeah. But come on, this is like maybe one of the most classic Disney villains of all time.
The OG,
the cackling witch, the fact that she poisons Snow White with an apple. Maybe this is where the whole idea that check your Halloween candy comes from.
Razors and glass. Yeah. Does make a lot. And the way she just looks too when she is in the witch form. Really scary.
Yes.
Though I think she didn't make my list simply because it was a poison that put her to sleep instead of kill her. If it was a killer apple, I think she would have made my list. But there's just that little softening of it and her motivation is, again, vanity. She wants to look pretty. And what she's willing to do for it, like, because Mother Gothel, I feel like they're kind of similar from Rapunzel, because they both have that vanity issue. But in terms of looks, certainly the witch is just, with that big old knob on her nose.
The nose with the warts, the magic mirror was terrifying. Yeah, I think this is from 1937 too, by the way. When you were a kid and you were watching these, did you have any idea that they were from the 30s?
No. And think about a kid back then who really had little to no experience watching something on a ginormous screen of that, horrific nature.
Oh my God.
It was probably one of the first horrific experiences at the cinema that kids would have that, you know? Or
Yes,
maybe
yes.
in life, in period.
Well,
so I get
around that time, a little before that, you had The Wizard of Oz come out, and you also have, and I think that's where my fear of witches is rooted from, is from The Wizard of Oz, and I think there was something very old school European, witches just to scare children.
Yeah. And eat
and
them.
that's why-
Hansel and Gretel, I think people are,
Yes, yes,
fed.
and that's why you
orally.
see them pop up in Disney, because they pretty much basically just took everything from the Brothers Grimm and made it a movie. But yeah, that was my what was that, 6?
Was that your 6? Okay, so
Yeah.
we're on to 5. So my number 5 then, or is this my 6? No, this is my 5th.
That was
and this
my
is another
6th,
one that I'm going to credit the sub for putting back on my radar. Was Shen Yun from Mulan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This is kind of like, I only saw Mulan once in the theater back when it initially came out. We're talking 1998. So I was, junior in high school, sophomore in high school or something. Don't remember like loving it compared to some of the other Disney stuff that had come out around that time. But they mentioned this one scene, and I went back on YouTube and I watched this one scene that really kind of solidified his place right here in the middle for me. And that's where he like gets a hold of this little baby doll that is essentially from one of the kids of the people he's trying to annihilate and essentially genocide. I mean, he's genocidal. First of all, Shen Yun wants to wipe out a people. That's not good. That'll immediately get you on a scary list.
Yep.
But he smells this doll. He hands it around to his like second in command, and they're all kind of like sniffing it weird. And then they're like, and then he gets it back, and he has it in his hand, and he's like, I gotta get this doll back to the little girl who lost it. And the implication, man, is not good. Shen Yun comes off really, really creepy in that scene specifically. And he's voiced by Miguel Ferreira, who's people would recognize immediately. He's done a lot of like horror stuff as well. Most notably, I would argue, in the TV series of The Stand, not the newest incarnation for Paramount
Right.
Plus. But he played Lloyd in it, who was secondhand to the devil. Great character, and he pulled that off maybe even better than the newer guy. But just the yellow eyes, the forbidding strength of a character that did exist in history and did do horrible things like slaughter a people. So that's why he's there.
I think so. I think that's a great villain. Not on my list, but I remember him like being so haunting and coming out of the shadows, and the yellow eyes, which kind of reminds me of my next on my list, which is Scar from The Lion King. Also has like yellow eyes, yellow and green eyes, and just terrible when you have like an uncle who is so obsessed with power he'll do anything and basically kill off your father. And the voice acting on that was amazing. The nails that stay in your mind with
Jeremy Irons, man.
Irons.
He knows how to voice. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I just talking about Jeremy Irons here for a second. Have you watched Dead Ringers, which is ultimately based on his initial film, Dead Ringers?
Which is the film?
Cronenberg, I believe.
I have not watched it yet.
Oh, I really enjoyed the new series. I remember liking the movie, but what they've done with the series is it's not for everyone. I'm going to say that,
Okay.
But I found it really intriguing. No likable characters at all, but at the same time, it was doing stuff that I haven't seen before. But you're right. Scar's on mine. Scar's number 3 for me. So he's a little bit higher, and mostly just because you got the loner aspect, you got the brother killer, let alone the uncle killer. The brother is like more significant to me than killing Simba's uncle. There's another like kind of ambiguous sexuality. Does he want to then be the leader of the pride? What's going on with all of the harem that he then has afterwards? I don't know what's going on there. Just this Shakespearean nature, since Lion King is ultimately Hamlet at heart.
That's an excellent point.
Tragedy.
That's an excellent point.
He's scary. He definitely
totally
is.
agree. And gosh, I mean, the Disney movies, not to just jump off of this villainous bandwagon here, but all those movies at the time like had something incredibly tragic happen very early in the movie.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you the second half of the movies, but I could tell you like the first 10 minutes exactly what happens because, pun intended here, it scarred me.
Right.
It was just unforgettable to watch something like that as a child. 1994, The Lion King came out. I don't think I've ever rewatched it, not because I was too scared of it, but just because I think seen it, tragic story. And
you haven't
you're
watched
right.
the live version of it that Favreau did?
I have not.
It's great. Like we have a cat, and that's the only time I've seen the cat like look at the screen for a prolonged period of time because it's recognizing its kin. Yeah. I love the live action version. Some of those are hit or miss, but when Favreau's doing it, it's usually a hit. I get it. Scar's my number 3, so I'm totally with you. He was horrifying. So my 4 was then, it connects to the first one, Percival. It's Cruella de Vil. 1961 Cruella's name, voiced by Betty Lou Gerson, who herself was kind of like a scream queen of sorts. Back in the day, she was in the OG The Fly from the 50s. She was in Twilight Zones. She's an icon. She, I guess, was like the default mayor. I don't know, default's the wrong word, but the honorary mayor of North Hollywood for like a decade.
Really?
So she's a really interesting character herself, the voice of Cruella. But what puts her so high on my list is that she is already rich. She's a London heiress who's willing to then slaughter animals for just glamour, for not even for money. That's why I kind of put Percival so much lower, because he's doing it at least for a reason. He needs the money, Australia, he's, living in the outback, needs to survive. Cruella's doing this to simply look good, which is unforgivable and on all counts. And interestingly, Cruella de Vil, is an alias that Dracula uses. So in a way, she is like Nosferatu of characters, and considering the black and white that she's iconically associated with, she is vampiric in nature. And granted, I haven't seen the new live action version of Cruella or whatever. Not too interested in that. But I do remember as a kid, not really, really being disturbed by the motives of that villain. And I'm not a dog guy. You're a dog guy, so I can only even imagine how much more horrific you would find her.
It's very upsetting. And you nailed it. The wealthy, I mean, they'll do whatever they want or whatever they need to get what they want. But there's that idea, because they're so wealthy, that they can just get away with anything, which is a great villainous character trait. I think I just straight up forgot to put that on my list.
Can't remember them all.
No, you can't.
I don't remember loving 101 Dalmatians either. It never made my top Disney list sort of thing, but she's the standout of it. You know what I mean? She is the reason that's good, probably, is because she is such a memorable, horrible villain. It's one of those movies where the villain supersedes the protagonists.
Absolutely. So let me just see what number this is. This is my number 4. Is
cool.
Ursula. Ursula from The Little Mermaid.
Okay. All right. I'm surprised that's there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why. I was always really put off by Ursula's character design. Very unique, very striking, an octopus-like lower body, menacing tentacles.
Yeah.
She stands out, a very imposing character, really great voice acting, and very powerful voice. I think the voice actor was Pat Carroll. I'm not too familiar with their work, but amazing, manipulative. She's a sea witch. Another.
That's the point. Plus, going back to Spider-Man, you've had Doc Ock in yours, so you clearly got issues with these
things with tentacles,
amorphous sea creatures.
Yep. The whole dark magic. She can use her magic to basically change the environment around her.
What does she want, though? Because she didn't make my list because I'm not entirely clear on her motivation. Like, she just wants to be respected by the other mer people, like not an outcast, or I just don't know where she's coming from, I guess. That doesn't make her scary enough for me.
Yeah,
that kind of seems like a troll.
Yeah. Yeah. A sea troll, which, yeah, I like that. I think she's jealous.
Yeah.
I think she has a jealous, basically Ariel's desires, I think, make her jealous. Maybe she doesn't know what she wants, and the fact that somebody that does makes her kind of crazy.
I could see that. Her lack of identity is also rooted in, she's born ugly. She's not a pretty person. So, like, in a sense, that kind of makes her a little sympathetic to me. And I can understand where she's coming from in her hatred of Ariel, which makes her less scary. When I do start to understand why someone is acting that way, it's not forgivable by any means. But I guess in that, jealousy for me is, I don't know. I guess because I'm a jealous person myself. What can I say? It is,
Same here. I'll admit it. But overall, I mean, I think that's her deal with Ariel. But I think overall, like, she wants complete power and to, like, overthrow. Is it Triton? King Triton?
Yeah. Right. She wants to be in control.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't control how she came into this world looking like okay, so my 4 then, because my 3 is Scar, so I'll skip over that one, as I already talked about it, was Claude Frollo, 1996.
Oh, sure.
From Hunchback of Notre Dame. Another film that as a whole wasn't a huge fan of. And this guy was always going on my list, but then I saw he was one of the ones that was catching a lot of heat on the subreddit, asking the question, what's the scariest one? A lot of people agree with this. Great voice actor, too. We got Tony Jay here. People might remember him the most as the father figure from Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. He's a really fun character actor. But he's such a sinister voice in this one. And for me, what is scary are those who use the church to do evil stuff, and this is what this character does. Not only just like persecuting people that he feels are below him, but he's the most rapey of all of them, maybe. And that's going to make my top 5 scary no matter what. What he does, Esmeralda, is just like, inexcusable, especially when he's supposed to be pious. Just the hypocrisy there makes him scary, because I'm seeing, like, he's a Trump-esque character in a lot of ways, you know what I mean?
That's a great call. That is a great comparison. It's again, the rich get richer, and they'll do whatever they want.
He's realistic is what really makes him scary to me. I could not have him on there, and people agree that he belongs there. He's in contention for the top spot from a lot of folks. So Claude Frollo, I think I have only watched that movie once because it's just a creepy movie to me. I don't like it.
You know what? I'll be honest. I don't even remember it that well. I think I probably have seen it, and then out of all the films that we're talking about from our Disney movies, I think I'd really want to rewatch that one because it's so far removed from my memory. But as a villain, you could still see him in your head.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think part of why I haven't rewatched it like I have other Disney films is because I don't like the look of any of the characters. Granted, I mean, that's going to mean to say, but the Hunchback, I don't like looking at him. I don't like looking at Frollo, and I'm uncomfortable with how attracted to Esmeralda I am. So I just should not be watching that ever. Again, I'm thinking it's not my Disney film.
Makes sense. I
blame Demi Moore though for doing such a great job with that Esmeralda.
I blame her too.
So I had Scar for 3. What do you have at 3?
Oh, my number 3 is Maleficent because it's so hard to say. No, I'm kidding. Again, we got another
witch.
Another witch here. I should have just stuck to like all witches in my list here. It would have been too obvious. I think Maleficent is, one of those other like iconic Disney villains where you can kind of close your eyes and picture Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. Here are my notes. I've got dark and mysterious. She's got the ability to just conjure up spells with the supernatural. She's cruel, but she's also, this is like a revenge story. Have you seen the feature, like the live action Maleficent?
Yes, and I remember liking it. I remember liking the sequel to it too.
I think I did too, and they really paint. This is kind of going back to our previous episode about specific Spider-Man villains who have some kind of like understanding to their motives, and I kind of feel that's with Maleficent as well. But in the Sleeping Beauty version, they just kind of straight up paint her as the villain and not just cruel. I mean, she does curse the princess to die on her 16th birthday, so I would say, maybe has spiraled a little bit here.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. You remember that when I think we brought this up multiple times, that, and I can never remember the name of it. The Noomi Rapace movie that came out last year about the witch and putting the girl in the cave till she was 16. I don't know.
Yes,
that one springs to mind when it comes to Maleficent.
I mean, that was a foreign film from Europe. This is another story plucked from Europe. I bet all of these folklore sort of like intertwine and have very similar origin stories from where they come from. But as far as a Disney villain goes, they really just sort of the look of the character just vilify the dark robe. I think she's got like a scepter, and like her hair is up almost in a horn shaped.
And the whole dragon aspect too. I mean,
yes. The bird again. Birds scare me.
We got
this is a no-brainer
cast just on horror movies involving birds.
We totally could.
That would be great.
We totally could.
I get it. She didn't make my list. I don't know. I get why looks wise she's scary, but I guess, and I have actually recently rewatched it, and I love the animation of Sleeping Beauty, and it has my favorite Disney song of all time. Once Upon a Dream is by far my favorite Disney song. I guess I don't have this witch thing that you got going on with me, but I get it. I do understand.
Listen, I'm just saying that Hollywood has made me afraid of witches from an early age, and it's not my fault.
No, it's not. And it's very valid, and I think it also popped up on the sub a lot. For some reason, it just didn't like stick with me, but I can understand why it would. And I'm sure maybe this next one wasn't even on your radar. It doesn't even have a voice. My number 2 is Chernabog.
That's my number 2.
No! Yes. From Fantasia, 1940.
Yes. I bet you our number 1 is the same then too.
Probably. I'm getting that sense that it likely is. So, granted, this villain is really only in a 10-minute segment of the entirety of Fantasia. So it's kind of cheating by putting it in there, I guess. But it is as close to the devil as you get next to Hades, and it doesn't talk, which to me is almost scarier, because all it's doing is sucking every night the souls that are resting quietly to its own machinations of horror and torture, and tossing them in the volcanic pit and pulling them back out and forcing them to change between pig and goat and all sorts of horrific shapes and sizes. It's the only Disney film I can think of that has upper frontal, where you see cartoon boobs. That's what I'm getting at. Cartoon boobs. I was really tiptoeing around saying it, but a cartoon boob you see.
I think that's okay to say.
Chernabog's sequence, which is meant to be scary in this moment because you don't see that. Just the darkness of him, the foreboding nature that he's literally part of this mountain. He's definitely deserves to be up there, even though he's only in 10 minutes to have that sort of impact that Chernabog has. He puts him up there, and I want to hear why you think he's scary, but then I want to tell you about what he's based on, because I hadn't known this until I looked it up.
I did a little research too. Well, it's just funny. It's like a few weeks ago, Nora and I were talking about Fantasia, and I don't even remember why, but it's like one of her favorite animated films, and I think that's why it's been in my head. And Chernabog is, I mean, yeah, the closest you'll get to like a demon / the devil, like in a menacing way, because even the James Wood portrayal is very, childlike.
Right. Agreed.
Chernabog is like dark and sinister, and like the massive wings and the skeletal body, the glowing eyes. It's like,
he's metal. I saw somebody put in one of the comments.
He's metal.
He's the only metal villain in all of Disney. And I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and he also has the ability to like summon and command like supernatural beings.
Right.
But I think the thing that really tops off the evil is the music that's associated with Chernabog, which I looked up is Night on Bald Mountain.
Right. I know. Well, of course, after we talked about the Spider-Man, you had 2 bald villains on there. It makes sense you're gonna have more villainous bald.
Terrifying portrayal of the bald.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention about your research? Because it's very interesting.
Let's jump into what your research shows, and
it's like contemporarily relevant. I'm just gonna kind of like read it verbatim here. So Bald Mountain is an actual place, and it's right outside of Kiev, Ukraine. It has a wide history of pagan worship, and there's apparently like some strange ancient idols are still actually there today. And Chernabog comes from a Slavic folk tale, and he had a brother named Bilobog, which means white god in Russian, and it's kind of the Russian to the Ukrainian Chernabog, which is very interesting. And they were always fighting about who got to own the daylight, because if you remember in the sequence, it only happens at night. When the light comes out, Chernabog has to kind of turn back into the mountain, and the Russian wins. Bilobog beats Chernabog ultimately. Which, let's hope that's not how it happens in real life here today.
Right.
Go Ukraine.
Right. Go Ukraine. But yeah, this is like the fight of good and evil, the light and the dark.
I just thought the relevance of that is insane for right now.
Absolutely. That's that's great. And yes, something that's also just been stuck in my head. Like, it reminds me of, do you remember the cartoon in the 90s, the Gargoyles?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's just very gargoyle and like
it is
gothic.
Gargoyle-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a demon, legit.
So let's talk about our number one, because I bet you it's the same one.
Countdown. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. The whale from Pinocchio. No, I'm kidding. Horn King, baby.
Horn King, the Black Cauldron. Also, the whale from Pinocchio did nothing wrong.
Monstro. He really didn't. You can't hate Monstro.
Monstro.
Horn King takes it. When we first were talking about doing this one, I knew he was going to be my number one. There was no question there. And I actually hadn't seen that movie until this year for the first time.
Oh, really?
I didn't see it as a kid, and I'm almost glad I didn't, because it's the scariest Disney movie. If we were to do the top 10 scariest Disney films, this would be it. Why'd you pick him?
I mean, based on looks alone, he kind of reminded me of even a more sinister version of Skeletor.
Yes,
Skeletor
or Darkheart from Care Bears, similar vibe.
Not even as scary. Like, this is a scarier, more terrifying character, very menacing appearance. He's got dark ambitions, I wrote down. The Horn King's ultimate goal is to possess the Black Cauldron, a powerful and ancient artifact.
He can reanimate corpses.
I was going to say he can raise an army of
humanity,
dead.
Essentially. Is there anyone that wants to decimate all of humanity? I mean, we're talking about Shen Yun doing like war stuff where he wants to take out a people, but we're talking about the Horn King wants everyone to be reanimated corpses, essentially, to worship.
Yep.
That is some satanic stuff. And voiced by John Hurt.
I was just gonna say that. R.I.P. Huge John Hurt fan.
Yeah.
Great voice. Yeah, the command over the undead, the deep raspy voice. This guy just takes the evil cake.
He does indeed. Yeah, he's as scary as it gets when it comes to Disney films.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to get here, and we apologize because we're trying to make these a little more succinct.
Yeah.
But
I think
Spider-Man in this one kind of went over time. But
these are both coming in around 45 minutes. I think that's like
we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and when you do a list episode like we do, we just yeah. But that's it, guys. Nightmare fuel from your childhood.
Indeed. Let's hope that Disney continues to churn out some scary villains, because you got to give kids nightmares somehow. Who else is going to do it other than Disney? But
that's right.
Until episode 62, stay alive.